The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, my favorites and yours, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we will be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Illy, who lives in Moncks Corners, South Carolina. And Illy asks, the U.S. continues to attack small boats in the Caribbean. So far, no proof that these little boats are actually carrying drugs. The Admiral in charge of the forces conducting the attacks has resigned, and although we don't know the exact reason for his stepping away, we can speculate that the military actions might be the reason. I know the panel has discussed these attacks before, but with the new information or lack thereof and the resignation of the Admiral, how do you see this playing out? Is the president's agreement to send the CIA into Venezuela a prelude to war? Those are excellent questions, Illy. Mark Scott?
Yeah, the Admiral is Alvin Halsey. He was in the position for less than 1 year. And again, I think it's speculation as to why he left. Although, some people said, well, maybe he had some health problems, this, that, and the other. However, he looked pretty healthy to me. He was in charge of the Southern Command, and I would see that he had some reservations about what's going on down in Venezuela, or in the Caribbean, and because that's not what the military does. And I was watching a show, and they had, I think it was like Meet the Press or one or the other, and they had Rand Paul on there. And I have to admit, I very rarely agree with Rand Paul, but his comment was, these are small boats. They'd have to stop if they were to get to the United States coast. They'd have to stop like 20 times to be able to, refuel, to be able to get close. And a lot of people are saying that, well, they're really going to Haiti. And then the question was, well, they think it's fentanyl. And again, Rand Paul, even though his policies I detest, he was quite correct. Fentanyl is not what they make in Venezuela. That doesn't come from there. This is one of those cases where, an admiral, and I've looked at this guy's background. He has a pretty good background. And you have to ask yourself, is his resignation, does that hurt us at all? Because at least he might have been a force to be able to stand up and say, no, we shouldn't be doing this. But then again, we've seen that doesn't go over very well often. We used to have 4 women that were 4-star. We have none now. They're all gone. And they seem to be culling the herd a little bit here. So maybe it was, he knew that this was wrong, and he basically said, they're going to come get me anyway because I'm black, and I might as well just, go with some honor and just basically say, okay, I retire, and that's it. And yeah, I do think it hurts us, but it does show how absolutely ridiculous this thing is of blowing up boats. And I can't remember if it was Argentina or Venezuela, the president of one or the other said that they knew that one of the boat was a fisherman. It was a fisherman. And, again, Rand Paul making the point that, okay, you're going to have to stop 20 times to refuel. It's going to take you forever, first of all, to get here. It makes no sense. As Scott said before, is this a show of machismo? Very possible. It makes people think that something's being done where maybe nothing needs to be done at all.
I believe it was the president of Colombia.
Okay, that could have been, yeah.
Is it not? Yeah, where there was going to be, it was a covert. Trump said, oh, it's a covert. We have covert operation or something. Well, covert means that you don't talk about it. So anyway.
Well, I mean, look, one of the tactics that this Trump administration uses to do other things is to distract, by doing things to distract attention. And it's getting hard to know whether this is a distraction or this is a thing, right? And it really doesn't matter. But since September 2nd, I think we're up to 32 people killed without any kind of proof of who they are, even no release of names, no way to connect them to anything. They're simply people who existed, got on a boat, were nowhere near the United States, and were blown out of the water and killed. Now, for the first time, there were 2 survivors of one of the attacks on the submersible vehicle. And one of them is in a coma and in horrible shape, unlikely to even survive, but he's back in Colombia, and I think it was Colombia. And they say that, if he revives from this, they will hold him, to account one way or another. The other one was released to Ecuador, and the Ecuadorians said that this man, whose name is Andre Tefino, is in good health, and they simply let him go. And there doesn't seem to be any proof that he was doing anything wrong when he was blown out of the water. And it's hard to say exactly what his role is, but Ecuador didn't take it seriously enough that they even wanted to hold him. He's simply returned to Ecuador and by the administration and released. So that doesn't exactly make you, and I imagine that it's only a matter of time before some reporter goes down to Ecuador, tracks him down, and asks him questions about what his role in life is. But these are really egregious moves on the part of the Trump administration, and it's not clear, I don't think, that there's a real reason for them even to entertain the idea of doing it, much less actually doing it. So as Mark pointed out, Venezuela is not a fentanyl smuggling country, right? Most of the fentanyl that we get comes from Mexico. Most of it is driven across the border at normal border sites, which are overwhelmed by trucks every single day, usually driven by Americans who get through customs very, very quickly. And that's where most of the fentanyl comes from. And, countries like Colombia, which do smuggle, have cartels that do smuggle cocaine, generally speaking, wouldn't try to smuggle them from there in such small batches, because, again, as Mark pointed out, they would need to refill with gasoline like 22 times before they got anywhere close to America. So they would have to come closer and somehow bridge that gap. So again, it kind of leads you to wonder what exactly is going on here. Why is he doing this? And you begin to think about Venezuela and what it means and what it has and why it would be attractive to a guy like Trump. And I think that you end up with one of 2 things, and maybe both. One, they had talked about invading Mexico, right? And using the U.S. military against cartels in Mexico, and they were thwarted from Mexico. Mexico said, "No, you're not coming into our country and raiding us with your military. That is not going to happen." And so they backed off on that. Venezuela, on the other hand, we don't really have a relationship with the Maduro government, so Trump can do what he promised to do in Mexico to Venezuela with almost no consequences, other than, whatever Venezuela decides to do to fight back, which would not likely be like a war, declare war on us, but would more likely be to send teams of terrorists here to do something, to hit a target somewhere that they can reach, if they wanted to escalate this thing. The other possibility, and I would say that this is more of a possibility, is Venezuela has massive oil reserves, and those oil reserves have been coveted by Vladimir Putin in the past, who made a deal to bail out one of the Venezuelan national oil companies, and so now the Russian Gazprom owns some of Venezuelan oil, right? And that Trump is looking at Venezuela as a target for his new imperialism, right? Which we've seen him talking about with Canada and Greenland and Panama. But again, there would be negative consequences to making moves on those countries where there really aren't any negative consequences for him to move in on Venezuela. And so if he were to provoke Venezuela into an overt act of war, could declare war on Venezuela, could defeat Venezuela, probably within hours, and have a free run at whatever it is that he wants there, which would likely include the oil. It's sick and twisted, but I wouldn't rule it out.
No, I wouldn't rule it out either. And I was thinking about that, Scott, and also about the breaking up of the globe into the parcels, where Russia gets this or China gets that, and the United States, gets this portion of the hemisphere. And this could be a backdoor. What you're talking about could be a backdoor approach. My geography is terrible. Would Venezuela, if Trump, the president of peace, were to go ahead with something like this, which would not surprise me. At this point, nothing would surprise me. Venezuela is south of Brazil. As I said, my geography is terrible.
Yeah,
okay.
No, it's north of Brazil. North of Brazil. Does Venezuela connect directly to Mexico? Because I was thinking that might be no. Okay. No. You're both shaking your heads. Good, because as I said, I'm just wondering if that might be a way to sort of filter in the back door into Mexico and come up through and take over Mexico from the south.
Well,
that would be wild. But no, I don't think so. I think Venezuela is a target in and of itself.
I do too. Yeah, I do. And I think the real issue with this thing, with this entire operation, is that just what last week, the French Navy seized 9.6 tons of cocaine from West Africa. And you know what they did? They basically arrested them. Yeah. They didn't blow the ship up and sink it to the Davy Jones's locker. They basically took it over and got the drugs and arrested the people, sort of like law-abiding countries would kind of like do. We always talk about shipping in places like in the Strait of Hormuz and in Suez Canal, and we're always complaining about a tax on shipping and this, that, and the other, and we condemn those because they're basically just willy-nilly sinking things or trying to sink things, and we condemn that kind of thing. Well, what's the difference between what we're doing right now and what those terrorist organizations do when it comes to our shipping? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult if you believe that these boats are really, honest to gosh, drug traffickers, why aren't you just stopping them? We have the largest navy in the world, for God's sakes. Why are we just not stopping them, arresting these people, and being over and done with? This arbitrary just using drones and missiles and things like that. No, that is not the way the United States does things. If we have something where we say, listen, there's a drug trafficking problem, there's a better way to deal with this. And I think the French are showing us, and I hate to say it, but the French are showing us the way. You stop them and you arrest them. And then you try them and you destroy the drugs, but you do not arbitrarily just sink the ship. Could the French have sunk this tanker or this fishing vessel with the 9.6 tons? Absolutely. They're more than capable of sinking it, but they didn't because that's not the thing to do. And so the French, they could come out there and say, hey, look, French people, here are the drugs. Here's the ship. Here are the bad guys. We're going to try them. We done good. Our government can say, hey, we just blew up a ship and we say that it's got drugs on it and they were bad people on it. And come on. I mean, that's just not the way. We would not accept that out of any other country. And it's just, there's just such a hypocrisy to this. We would be condemning if the Chinese was doing this to, say, the Taiwanese or the Japanese or anybody else. We would condemn this.
Or if another president did it, we would condemn it.
Well,
like
yeah,
Obama,
Fox News and that would be, yeah, they'd be winding up. But no other president has done it. This is the first.
Exactly. Well, that's the point. Well, you know, that Trump and his buddies like to hear things go boom. And look at, I forget who it was on Fox, whatever, after the escalator stopped and the teleprompter didn't work. And of course, it was everybody in the UN's fault. Oh, we got to bomb UN headquarters, which he's talking about bombing Manhattan. I mean, so they like to bomb, what was it? Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to bomb Montreal. I mean, they love Republicans or the MAGA alt-right, whatever it is. They apparently love bombing and want to emulate Putin. But no, nobody would. And the fact that the two individuals who survived were let go rather than brought back here and given trials and heard in a court of law. It's the same thing as Kilmer Albrego Garcia, right? Oh, he's never coming back here. Oh no, we'll just support him someplace else. Well, why? Well, because nobody in that administration, nobody there wanted to hear what he had to say. You can't allow them to speak because they are fishermen, regular people, who are being murdered. It's a war crime.
I mean, you know, we don't know that for sure, but yeah, it very well could be. And at least we need to find out who these people are. Even if they are drug smugglers, they are so far away from the United States that there is, you know, you would really have a tough time proving in a court of law that they are trying to smuggle drugs into the United States. It doesn't look, the amount of firepower that we have right now in the Caribbean Sea near Venezuela is a little disturbing. We have 10,000 active troops there. We have 10 F-35 fighter jets. Do you understand that 10 F-35 fighter jets could end the war in Ukraine tomorrow? If they had those. This is an amazing weapon. Doesn't work very often, but when it needs a lot of maintenance. But when it works, it is a platform for incredible weaponry. We have the amphibious 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit there, a nuclear attack sub, 3 guided missile destroyers, and a guided missile cruiser, all off the coast of Venezuela. Whatever is going on there, this is a massive troop buildup, a massive military buildup. And there really doesn't seem to be any reason for it at all, other than Trump wants to destabilize Maduro to the point where he knocks him out of power. There will be resistance. He should expect resistance. Venezuela itself cannot defend itself against the United States of America, but they could certainly spread a lot of people out and cause a lot of chaos around the world. And with regard to U.S. interests, there are plenty of terrorist organizations, FARC, other sort of revolutionary Bolivarian South American regimes groups, militias, things like that, that would start paying attention to U.S. targets that they have within their range, and we would find ourselves in a pretty bad situation. That as we saw with Iraq, and as we saw with Libya, and if we've seen with Afghanistan, we do not want to be in. And and the fentanyl thing is the flimsiest excuse in the world for this, and it makes absolutely no sense at all.
No, it doesn't.
And to the Republicans who say that they are fiscally responsible. So not only did they take this very large cache of 9 tons of drugs worth about $600 million, by the way. They also got $108 million worth of drugs in the Indian Ocean. This again is the French. We're talking the French here. I mean, they've been getting in record numbers. I mean, so between the 3 that I'm looking at here, we're talking almost $1 billion in drugs being seized without having to kill anybody, without having to sink a ship, and with bringing the criminals to justice, which is an important thing. Because remember, if they're the ones transporting the drugs, there's somebody beyond them. Dead, they can't tell you who that is, or they can't be an asset to you. So there's an issue there. But they've done this, almost $1 billion worth of drugs by what's just being reported in the last 2 weeks. How much does it cost the United States to send those drones and those flights out there to destroy? Is it worth it? I mean, are we talking about, dollar for dollar return on investment here? Or, as Scott says, you've got a huge naval presence there, which at the moment isn't doing a whole heck of a lot of anything. This should be, if you want to really do this, this should be their function, and they should take a page from the French and capture them, get the drugs, get the people, if that's what they are, the drug smugglers, and start using them as assets to go back to the producers and to the distributors. And plus, where were you going? If they did reach the United States, you got to be giving it to somebody, because you're not going to get out the boat and go sell it on the streets of Miami. Who are you giving it? We have lost such an intelligence opportunity here by just arbitrarily blowing them up. Even if they are drug smugglers, which a lot of people are beginning to doubt, you have lost a huge intelligence asset by just arbitrarily killing them. And I think that's really our failure. And like I say, if this was anybody else, we'd be condemning them. Well, we would have been condemning them. Today, with today's American society, who knows? We probably would be cheering them on.
Well, but here's the thing. You mentioned Rand Paul before, right? And Rand Paul is in the majority party.
I'm sorry.
I know. And, his neighbors can't beat him up enough. But look, he's 100% correct about all this. And this is what I'm not seeing on the other side. How about, where are the Democrats who are screaming about this? I saw today in the news that Elizabeth Warren is complaining about the Argentina bailout and the fact that we're buying $20 billion worth of our useless, worthless Argentinian pesos. And I guess she's on the banking committee, so this is her purview. She's jumping into action and saying, we need to investigate this. Where are the people who are on the military committees jumping up and down and screaming like people with hair on fire and saying, we need to investigate this before one other fisherman is killed off the coast of Venezuela? I don't see, and I know that they're running around like wild because this is the way Trump operates. He throws out so much stuff that you can't react to everything, but we can react to it here. And they can react to it in Congress. And I don't understand where the senators are who are staging some kind of protest against this, because these are lives being lost and young children losing their parents, losing their father, and all the ramifications of murdering somebody in cold blood without even bothering to present any kind of evidence that there's any kind of wrongdoing. Not that the wrongdoing would justify this action, because it won't, but at least it would make us think, okay, well, there's some basis in reality here. But right now, as it stands, there is no basis in reality here. This is simply a military a war crime that Trump is committing, that Pete Hegseth is committing, and that anybody who pulls the trigger is committing. And it has to stop. And the only people who can stop it are members of Congress screaming loudly enough about it. And we're just not seeing that kind of leadership on the Democratic side of the aisle. You know,
no, we're not.
I haven't even seen anybody really complaining about this, much less doing something about it, swearing to investigate it, all kinds of stuff. So I guess,
let's face it, it's bad news when you got to rely on Rand Paul.
Right. I guess give Rand Paul his props, because at least he's saying something. He's going on Fox News and talking about it. You know, that's better than absolutely nothing, which is what we're hearing from the rest of them.
I don't know where Congress is. Well, I mean, Congress is doing what it usually does, which is nothing. I mean, we've got this, as you say, we've got this huge military buildup, and they were flying B-52s or something over Venezuela or Colombia. Or flying. I mean, all this is expensive, and Congress is supposed to be involved, and they're not. And also another point is, I understand that Trump has appropriated money or wants to appropriate money to pay the troops. And I have no issue with paying troops. However, during the government shutdown, Trump is or wants to take money to pay the troops. And if he can simply, and as he has been doing, Trump, I mean, taking money from here and taking money from there and blocking money like to New York and other places where there are projects that are already underway, where millions, if not billions, have already been spent, and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're canceling this. We're canceling that. We're canceling the other thing. And Congress doesn't do anything. Then Trump has no reason for Congress. And again, we're on our way to the plenary power that Stephen Miller blurted out before he stopped himself. And I mean, what are we paying Congress for?
What do we always pay Congress for? Pretty much nothing.
Well, I mean, they better. I don't know. I mean, and the Supreme Court is hopelessly bootlicking. It really, I wind up finding myself, not that I was terribly optimistic once Trump was reelected, and I was worried that he would be. I don't find myself terribly optimistic now that there's any way to stop him. So I think that my concern with the resignation, I mean, I understand that to honor his obligation to the Constitution, Admiral Halsey would have to resign. So then his post is either left entirely open, or
no, he'll be replaced by a lackey
behind him. Yeah, that's the problem. Then the person underneath him who doesn't or someone else will be appointed who will swear allegiance to Trump personally. That's what I'm concerned about. But for him personally, no, he had to, Admiral Halsey had to resign. If I were he, there would be no way I could tolerate it. So thank you for the question, Illy. I do hope that we answered it. Thank you for being a listener and spending some time with us. And I don't know if we really answered the question as about the agreement to send the CIA into Venezuela, a prelude to war. I think it may possibly be. I'm not sure what is happening, but it would not surprise me if it were. So we will, I hate to say we'll have to see, but we will have to see. But I would not bet on the president of peace maintaining peace. And of course, Trump will always blame someone else for starting something. even if it's obviously something that he did himself. So if you're not yet subscribed on the platform of your choice, all our listeners, please do so. And we look forward to seeing you again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social-political issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.